Welcome to this session, which is on this very famous poem by John Keats. The name of the poem is La Belle Dame Sans Merci. And I am Dr. Shyaonti Talwar, who is going to take you through this poem. So let's look at the title. It's obviously not an English title, it's a French title, and this title is derived from an earlier 15th century poem by a similar name. And the poet is a very noted English poet. In fact, we are going to look at the poet now. So he is John Keats, who was born in the year 1795 and who lived a very, very short life and died in 1821. In fact, he died of tuberculosis at a very young age. He was only 25 when he succumbed to tuberculosis. But nevertheless, continues to be one of the most loved English poets. In fact, he was an English romantic poet. A romantic referring to a style in English poetry where in which poets and writers they engaged in writing about nature, elements that are around us and that are natural in the environment. In fact, Keats is said to have a style which is heavily loaded with sensualities, most notably in the series of his odes. Now, Keats was known for his odes. What are odes? Odes are basically poetic pieces which are dedicated to someone or something. So, most of Keats's odes sing praises of elements in nature or works of art. To give some examples, Ode to a Nightingale. In this, Keats is dedicating all his adulation, all his admiration to a nightingale, a songbird, as we know. Ode on a Grecian urn. Now, this Grecian urn is a work of art, and Keats is writing a poem on this work of art. So, these are some of his better known works. And the current poem, which we are going to study, is a ballad. It belongs to the genre of the ballad form. Now, what is a ballad? A ballad is something which has a folk origin. Like in India, you have folk songs, and if you were to hear folk songs, you would realize that they're not really very difficult to follow, and they are not very difficult to sing, and they have a rhythmic quality about them. So a ballad has those similar traits as that because it originates from folk literature. So it is very easy to sing or recite. It has a refrain like a song, one line keeps repeating time and again, and the language is very simple. The stanzas are very rhythmic, and it is not very complicated or complex language. A ballad is usually about a war story or a love story. And like you can make out from the picture, this poem is a love story between a knight and a fairy. So it has an element of mystery in it. What you see in the story, in the narrative of the poem, is a fantasy scape. It's like a fairy tale land. You don't find this kind of a setting or an environment in real life. Now, to give you an idea about knight, who is a knight? A knight is basically a warrior, but he is slightly different from a warrior because the knight is also someone who shows his chivalry, his valor, his bravery, his courage in saving a princess or a woman in distress. And of course, knights used to fight battles, but in literature and in poetry, the term knight is very different from the term warrior. A knight is often associated with love and romance, and a warrior is associated with sacrifice and battles.